there, thank you for joining us. My name is Liz and I work at Glenelg Library for the Holdfast Bay Council. Today we're lucky enough to have author Jill Baker here with us. She has written The Horns, which we can see here, which is book one of the, I'm sorry, how do we pronounce that? Zambezi trilogy. So we're just going to be talking about that a little bit today. So The Horns is a deeply personal account of being born into what was first Southern Rhodesia, and then Zimbabwe that we know today. Her story delivers snapshots of her intriguing life in this part of Africa, and through her characters reveals the diverse perspectives of Zimbabwe's history. So that sounds quite interesting, so let's get started. Jill, thank you for being here today.
It's a pleasure, Liz.
I have a few questions for you, so let's just leap into it. So how was your book, The Horns, personal for you, and have you started writing the sequel yet?
The answer to the second bit, I'm doing the research at the moment. It took me 8 years to do the research for this one.
Oh, wow.
But my husband has got a team together now, and they're all working away on number 2, which is fantastic.
Great.
I've got to aiming to get that ready for a UK tour in August next year.
Exciting.
So that's that part. And why is The Horn so personal? Well, it is personal because I had an extraordinary childhood. My father was in African education, and so as a result, my 3 best friends, when I was a little tucker, were 3 Amandebele boys. And so I spoke Sindebele better than as I spoke English. But it was what happened to them later that got me so fascinated. One of them was the son of a chief, and of course he had a great deal to lose with colonization. And he went over to Russia, got trained in the military at Russia, and came back as head of intelligence in one of the armies that was trying to get rid of the colonials, Rhodesians. The other one, he was of mixed blood, so he was not purely Amandebele, but he would probably, in a previous generation, have been a slave to the Mandebele. And he was a brilliant kid, and he really relished the education, he relished the learning, he relished everything that colonialism opened up for him, I guess. And he eventually ended up as deputy to Bishop Muzorewa, who was working with Ian Smith to try and organize an internal settlement. So we had the one who was out there fighting, one who was trying to do an internal settlement, and then Prune. He was just a delightful character who used to come in for the fun of us, and he was an orphan. Mother died in childbirth, and he had an extraordinary career as a businessman later in life. So he actually got caught between these two as the story goes through. So it's an extraordinary story. It was just sitting there waiting to be written.
Told. Sounds great. Now, Carol in the book is presumably based on your childhood. Did you have a terrible boarding school experience when you were young?
Well, I think I was rather a precious kid, unfortunately. My mother was English. Dad had just come back from Cambridge University when I was born, and I spoke good English. And we had some very tough kids at school, and so I was not used to being tough. I had a rather sheltered childhood, I think, and rather artistic and literary and musical, and I didn't kind of fit the mold. So I used to say, "You just wait, we're going to beat you up behind the tanks, eh?" Oh, I didn't want to be beaten up behind the tanks, but that happens, so you live through it.
So a bit tough, but you got through it.
Look, I learned.
Yeah.
I learned, and there's no question that if you have a few unpleasant bits in your life, it was a tough few years.
Character building, maybe.
Very character building.
Wonderful. So, what similarities do you find between living in Australia and South Africa?
Look, a huge amount. One expects we were both colonies. We both speak English. We both have the same administrative structure, the same requirement for democracy and freedom. But I think the classic difference was that we were building a brand new nation from nothing. Now that means that, and it didn't mean to say there wasn't a culture existing. There was a huge culture, and that's really what my book is all about, was the Matabele culture, primarily. But we were building where there had been nothing before. So the ox wagons came through and forged the roads into the country. There was literally absolutely nothing there. So when you just take it from that, we were constantly innovating, constantly looking for better ways of doing it. We had 2 world wars. So if you take 1890 was when the settlement occurred, 1914 war, 1940 war.
Yeah.
And in both cases, as an obedient little colony, we provided all our men to fight for Britain and lost lots of people in the process. And that was black and white fighting too. It wasn't just Europeans by any means. So it was constant adversity, really, in trying to build this last little portion of Africa, because it was the last little bit to be colonized. Trying to build this little last colony and make it meaningful and put together what we hoped would be a truly multiracial society. But we were never quite given enough time to bring that about, sadly. Anyway.
Sounds a bit complex, but
it
speaking of war,
yes.
Some of the scenes in the book are very bloody, but then you also have some very gentle stories to tell as well. Did you think striking a balance between the two was important?
Yes, terribly important. I think, unfortunately, as so often happens when you have war, that gets the predominant culture. So lots and lots of books have been written from every side about the war. I thought, I don't want to write about that. I want to write about the impacts of that war on my characters, the impacts on the country, and in the hope that it never happens again.
Yes.
It's not a pleasant time for anybody.
No, not at all. And I thought we couldn't let you come in and not read for us today. So would you mind reading an excerpt from the book about the preparation for battle, the battle formation, and the G of the spears?
The G of the spears. Well, if you don't mind me putting my antiquity glasses on, otherwise I wouldn't be able to do that. But yes, now this character is Jabu. Jabu has opted to have a traditional circumcision, which is a painful and dangerous operation. And he had to go off with an umfan, who's a young boy, to look after him. And they lived out in the bush until he was okay. Then he would go back for more training once that happened. So he stayed for 5 sunsets, and he remembered nothing about it. No pain, no heat, no cold. 5 sunsets with dreams raw with the jabbering hysteria of hyena, a choking roar of hunting lion, the sliding menace of snakes, and umfan lighting fires. Then the dream stopped. He remembered sitting at his father's feet with the mesmerizing flicker of a wood fire shining yellow and orange in his face. Mostly, he loved the stories of King Shaka. His eyes were fixed in his imagination on the lightning of the day, as he pictured the oil-shined bodies of warriors sweating with the excitement of preparation for battle. The king needed more cattle, and he'd thrown his spear at the Inkwala so that the warriors could blood their spears against a troublesome tribe. He imagined the brave shouts of the Amabuto as they told each other, "Never fear pain, die with courage. The enemy will fall as water to our feet." He imagined the battle itself, the silence of the creeping as the Amabuto moved imperceptibly closer to the enemy in the blackness of night, their backs to the mark where the scouts had told them the sun would rise. They would creep and stop, creep, stop. Not too close, never too close. The first creeping was the new Mashoja. Once they were enemy who were hated, then they became slaves. When they were loyal and proved they were brave enough, they became Mashoja or Amacha Amazulu, the fighters of the Zulu people. When the enemy slept, it was time for the second creeping, this time the trusted warriors, the Impi. Even in the dark, their oiled bodies gleamed against the featureless bush. Then the kneeling, no sound, no moving, until the sky behind them washed with early morning red. As they knelt, the strong runners circled up and round and behind the enemy to form the Ipondo Zinkomo, the horns of the bull. running on noiseless feet. Then silence. Last of all, the backward legs, the amadodas, the old men, looking to left, looking to right, making sure nobody was going to come round behind them. Then as the Reds streaked across the sky, just before the sun leapt up behind them, he imagined the slow half-standing of the first creeping, with their shields turned sideways. Still silence, for as long as a big pot took to boil on a wood fire. Then the zhee, the ch, the hissing. Jabu's body ached and thrilled to the fear of the zhee. The enemy hearing and understanding, running all over like frightened ants when their nest is disturbed by a big foot. The Zulu would hear shouts, "Amazulu, Amazulu!" The awful, inescapable shh, until the horns were in place. The frightened ants running this way, that way, looking, running again, but always the shh. Then the king shouts. The first creeping crack their shields flat in front of them with a loud noise, their itwa in the other hand, moving slow, steady, strong. Now bending so the enemy can see the second creeping, coming behind as they stand up tall and roar and leap and gyrate and scream, their ostrich feathers making them giants in the early morning.
Oh, wow.
It must have been a bit scary, wasn't it?
That was wonderful. You have a very lovely voice. Have you considered doing an audiobook?
I'm in the middle of it now, actually. Yes,
wow. Well, that would be wonderful to listen to.
It's a good
Very
one.
engaging.
And I think I'm very fortunate, I suppose, having lived and worked with Africans for so long. I can almost get the accent right.
Yeah.
But I have 3 African characters, of course.
Yes.
So I have to differentiate between them, and that's interesting.
Yeah. Wow, that was great. And just to wrap up, can you just tell everyone what's the best way that they can get a copy of your wonderful book?
Yeah, thank you, Liz. Well, it is distributed in Australia through Wakefield Press, distributed in South Africa through Porcupine Press, and we've got a UK edition being printed shortly, so that's one way. Or else through my website, which is jillbakerauthor.com, or else through Amazon. So there's several outlets, and it's going very well, so that's fantastic.
Fantastic. And of course, when the library reopens, we do have some copies here that can be borrowed as well.
Great.
So that's it for us today. So thank you so much for joining us, Jill.
Pleasure,
It was
Liz.
lovely
Thank
having
you.
you here.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching from home. This has been Liz at the library, and stay safe and keep reading. Bye for now.